Joey Aguilar, Chris Brazzell, and the Tennessee Volunteers host Diego Pavia, Eli Stowers, and the Vanderbilt Commodores in an SEC rivalry showdown. We're fired up for this matchup. It's the last week of the college football regular season, and bragging rights are on the line. Now, it is possible that Vanderbilt could work themselves into the consideration of a college football playoff spot. It does seem ultimately really unlikely, with things hinging on the final week of the regular season. A win would obviously be necessary for them to get in, but let's focus on what is important first. This is going to be a tough game for both of these teams. Starting with this Tennessee offense, they are a high-powered attack. They throw the football down the field, and they are a power-running football team. Now, in their most recent loss, a game that essentially upended and put their college football playoff hopes in the grave, was that very surprising defeat to Oklahoma. That game completely turned on a couple of turnovers from Tennessee, a game that they trailed at half by 6 points, and they thoroughly outplayed Oklahoma. I think back to that game. Also have to let you know that because of travel and with scheduling, I am recording this video before this upcoming Saturday's games of Tennessee, Florida, and Vanderbilt's matchup. So I am making this preview. There could be injuries. I don't know the results of those games. My assumption is that both of these teams do win, so that we are looking at a spot where Vanderbilt is 9-2 and Tennessee is 8-3. And in that situation, obviously Vanderbilt does have a chance to get into the playoff. But I do apologize if there's anything here that is not fully up to date. But nonetheless, let's continue, because Tennessee in that game, they couldn't run the football. This is a not quite to that level of defense. Vanderbilt's defense has been okay throughout the season. Inconsistently good is what I like to call them. They were great the first 3 weeks of the season. They struggled a couple of games. Georgia State and Utah State with some traction. And then against Alabama, that passing attack really lit them up. And that's a game that I want to circle as well for Vanderbilt. But that game against Oklahoma, not being able to run the football to that level, that gives you a bit of confidence on the Vanderbilt side that if Tennessee is going to play high-octane football, or Vanderbilt is built for those style of games, where they can go blow for blow in an old-style, old-fashioned shootout here with these two teams going right at it. I believe that would be the most fun game for us to watch in this one. It's realistically what we do get is something close to 30 points for each of these two teams, maybe even over 30 points for them. And the defense is being taken advantage of. I don't see a defensive back for Vanderbilt that can fully cover one-on-one. Chris Brazzell, there's few that are able to, except for unless his teammate Jermod McCoy could have some point gotten healthy and been on the field at some point. Really unfortunate that maybe even the best corner in all of college football hasn't even been on the field. All this talk about Mansour, Delane, and Leonard Moore. You know that Jermod McCoy is just as good, and I can't help but feel against Bama, against Oklahoma, Georgia, and those three losses, if they had Jermod McCoy on the field, I feel like they could have gotten a win maybe against Georgia. That play on 4th and 8, if he's in coverage on that one, maybe he's defending it against Alabama, or a play here or there, Oklahoma. So not having that guy on the field, I feel for Tennessee Volunteer fans. Clearly, they're going to be of the same opinion of that. But in this game, I see a bit more success on the ground for Tennessee against that Vanderbilt defensive line. And this Vandy team has been better at getting after the quarterback than overall stopping the run. Will Joey Aguilar have a little bit of time? He's going to get the football out of his hand on those deep choice routes that they run. I think a lot of those are going to be converted into some go balls, because it is the last game of the season, looking to run the points off. Remember that these guys run a system that is a lot to do with the wide receivers option of putting it over the middle and running a dig or coming back to the football, or they're going to take it vertical up the field depending on the leverage of the defensive back and what they're running. It's a relatively simple offense, right? It's based on numbers, and against Vanderbilt in this game, let's flip it to their matchup against this defense. They have been quite heavily leaning on Sedrick Alexander and MK Young really for the entire last month. Now, there were a little bit of health concerns there, but I have a lot of confidence that Sedrick Alexander in this game, that he'll have a bit of success on the ground against this Tennessee defense. Diego Pavia, when he was in consideration for that Heisman-type campaign year, it was because of everything he does with his legs. So this is a type of game. Diego Pavia is going to have 15 carries, something like that, 19 carries. He'll take his chances in this one. Most likely his last ever college football game in the regular season. You're going to have a bowl game to play in also and build up possibly any of that NFL draft stock. But I'm looking at some points in this one. Initially, I had a prediction of 30 to 26 put up here. I'm going to change that to 33 to 29. I think that Tennessee is going to get the win here at home. That defensively they can stack up pretty well because the strength of Tennessee and their offense and their wide receiving core with Brazzell, who is in consideration for the Biletnikoff Award, and then Vanderbilt, well, they've got two really good tight ends in Spence and Eli Stowers, who more likely than not is going to wind up being a second-round pick in the upcoming draft. This is a very talented player that can run very fluid routes over the middle. He can block well. I think that's a part of his game that does need a little bit of improvement. But on the road at Tennessee, that's just a different type of environment now. That's one of the toughest places in all of college football to play. And the Volunteers, even though they're not playing for a college football playoff spot, this rivalry game, you remember Vanderbilt, if I'm not mistaken, they got out to a 14-0 or a 10-0 lead in that game last year. And Tennessee had to win that game. They were on the road at Vandy, getting down a big 2-score hole, came back to win and punched their ticket to the college football playoff before they got boat raced by Ohio State. But nonetheless, this was a game that Vanderbilt didn't have all that much to play for, and they came out and played very hard. Where Vandy realistically has everything to play for. 10-2. If Alabama winds up losing, they could jump them. If Notre Dame were to lose, and they could end up jumping them. There's some chaos scenarios. Oklahoma, same exact thing. If there's some chaos there, a 10-2 Vanderbilt, more likely than not, is going to be over any of those teams because the committee will be valuing the 10-2 more so than a head-to-head of Alabama beating Vanderbilt. I do believe that a 10-2 Vandy would be in some scenarios over Alabama. I just don't know how high up they'll go. That's ultimately gonna come down to that decision that they make. But again, here to this ground game for Vanderbilt going up against the Tennessee defense. I liked what they did against Auburn a few weeks ago. A huge day from Pavia. Bulk of the yards came from him, and then 50 yards on something like it was, 20 carries? 50 yards and 20 carries. They didn't run the football all that well outside of Pavia. So athletically, is Tennessee able to stack up and contain Diego Pavia? That's been the question that I've asked every defense this season. Just about the answer every game has been no. You take a look at that Alabama game and the mistakes that were made. Well, if he doesn't fumble the football, throw a red zone interception, Vanderbilt probably beats Alabama. And if you're a Tennessee fan, you're like, well, we run the football or don't throw a dumb concept type play out into the flat and that's taken to the house for a pick six. The entire game would have been different for Alabama. Alabama didn't play all that great in the second half against Tennessee and that game in Tuscaloosa. So you're looking at two very evenly matched teams. It's incredibly hard for me to imagine this one is kept in the low 20s or in the teens, that either of these defenses can stack up well enough to hold them. I like Miles Capers to have a good day defensively from Vanderbilt. This Tennessee defense throughout the season has been up and down, but I do think Deshaun Bishop can be impactful enough to run through this Vanderbilt defense. I love this matchup so much because of not just the rivalry, but these teams are typically, well, you've got two different styles, right? Tennessee, it's points, it's yards. We're going to rile this up. Whereas Vanderbilt and their identity has been this underdog team. And they're quarterback led. He's like the identity. He wears the team's colors on his back every week, and you know what you're going to get from him. And he's gritty and tough. He doesn't care about the yards and the way it looks. It's all about winning, and it finds himself in conversations for the Heisman earlier in the season. Obviously, not whatsoever close to that. The ability as a passer would have needed to be much higher, and clearly they couldn't have lost games to Texas the way that they did, trailing and falling behind by a big margin in that game. And then against Alabama, really do believe that Alabama game was their opportunity to bring it back to them, but you have to credit the Crimson Tide for showing up prepared. So my prediction in this game, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be the Tennessee Volunteers pulling it out 33-29, an instant classic here on this Saturday, ending any hope that Vanderbilt might potentially get into the college football playoff. I want to hear from you guys, though. Who do you think wins this game? Am I correct? And you do believe Tennessee gets the win at home? Remember, that home field advantage is probably worth about 6-7 points. Talking about an SEC environment at home versus on the road. If this game were at Vandy, I would be taking Vandy. I want that to be known. I would be taking Vandy probably by 2 or 3 points because it's at Tennessee. At Neyland, we'll be taking them. But yeah, I got to hear from you guys. I'll try and get down there as soon as I can to engage with as many of you as possible. Thank you for the entire season. If you're a Vanderbilt fan or a Tennessee fan, for tuning into these videos that I've made for both of these teams throughout the year. It's been amazing. And we've got the college football playoff coming up, the NFL playoffs a little bit after that. Wishing all of you a happy Thanksgiving and holiday weekend and safe travels and enjoying time spent with family and watching some great entertaining football. So if you are a big football fan and you enjoy football content, make sure to subscribe for more Blitz with Blender football videos. I'm Josh Blender. I make NFL and college content weekly, preparing you and getting you set for these huge matchups and bringing the energy. We try and stay on the positive side, not critiquing too harshly with a lot of teams in this case for this game. You know, we could go down here and break them apart and not taking care of opportunities in the way that they probably should have this season. But overall, two good teams in the SEC, both ranked, going at it. Let's enjoy this one. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blender, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blender. To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.